Before we dive into today's intense story, a quick reminder, over 90% of our viewers watch our videos but aren't subscribed. If you enjoy content like this, take a second to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. And if you find this story gripping, don't forget to like the video. It really helps us out. I don't know when I stopped being happy. Maybe it happens slowly, like the way seasons change. You don't notice it at first. One chilly morning, one falling leaf. And then suddenly it's winter and you can't remember the last time you felt warm. That's how it felt with Erin and me. We'd been married for almost 9 years when I first started realizing something wasn't right. At first, I thought I was the problem. I told myself I was being too sensitive, or maybe too dramatic. We had a beautiful home, a daughter we adored, and a routine that worked, but inside me, something just didn't feel whole anymore. Erin used to be different. He was sweet, attentive, the kind of man who'd notice if I was having a bad day and make an effort to cheer me up. But over the years, that softness faded. The thoughtful gestures disappeared. He started spending more time at work, or maybe he just made it seem like he was. Conversations between us became short and robotic. I'd ask how his day went, and he'd mumble something vague while scrolling through his phone. If I tried to talk about something deeper, how I felt, or how we were drifting apart, he'd shut down or change the subject. For a long time, I accepted it. I figured this was what marriage looked like after a few years. Everyone says the honeymoon phase ends and life becomes about bills, chores, and taking care of your kid. I threw myself into being a good mother and tried to ignore how lonely I was. But loneliness is a loud silence. It eats at you even when the house is full of noise. And then there was Noah. Noah came into our lives when Erin hired him to renovate our backyard. He owned a small landscaping company and had been recommended by one of Erin's colleagues. I still remember the first time I saw him. He wasn't flashy or particularly charming, just present. He looked me in the eye when I spoke. He listened. He smiled at my daughter like she mattered, and when he talked to me, it felt like I existed again. Not as someone's wife or someone's mom, but as me. For weeks, Noah was around almost every day, working outside while I juggled remote work and house chores. We started talking more little things at first. He'd ask about the coffee I was drinking or recommend a book he liked. Our conversations were always in the open, always safe, nothing inappropriate. But they felt more intimate than anything I'd shared with Erin in years. I fought the feelings. At first, I told myself I was just flattered by the attention, that it would pass, that it was harmless. But then Erin missed our anniversary dinner. Not for God, missed. He'd remembered it was coming up, but said work ran late. No card, no flowers, nothing. That night, as I sat alone with a cold steak in front of me, I realized something inside me had cracked. I wasn't just lonely. I was tired of pretending I was okay with being invisible. I didn't plan to cross any lines, and to be honest, I didn't, at least not in the way people usually think. I never kissed Noah, never touched him, beyond the occasional friendly handshake. But emotionally, that's a different story. I confided in him. I told him things I hadn't said out loud in years, about the silence in my marriage, the way I missed being seen, the weight of pretending everything was fine, and he listened. Every single time, without judgment, without trying to fix me. Looking back, I think Noah was careful. He respected my boundaries. He never made a move or said anything inappropriate, but his kindness was a lifeline I clung to. And somewhere along the way, I started depending on it more than I should have. Erin noticed eventually, not right away. He was too checked out for that. But one night, I saw him staring at my phone while it was charging on the kitchen counter. He didn't say anything then, but the next morning, he made an offhand comment about how much time I'd been spending chatting with the gardener. I laughed it off, said we just talked about the yard, but the way he looked at me after, that suspicion, I hadn't seen that in him in years. Not anger, not jealousy, just doubt. Like he finally noticed I was slipping away. That should have scared me, but instead I felt something else. Vindicated. Maybe for years I'd been invisible. Now for once, he noticed. I knew things couldn't go on like this. I wasn't proud of the connection I'd formed with Noah. It wasn't fair to him, and it wasn't fair to Erin. Even if Erin had been emotionally absent for a long time. So I decided to end it, to stop talking to Noah altogether, not because I didn't care, but because it was the right thing to do, I told Noah one afternoon while he was finishing the deck. I thanked him for everything, for his kindness, for reminding me I still mattered, but said I couldn't talk to him anymore. He looked disappointed, but he nodded. He respected my decision. And then he left, just like that. I thought it would end there. I thought I could return to my marriage, patch things up with Erin, pretend like none of it happened. I started trying harder. I cooked his favorite meals, asked about his day, even suggested we go to counseling. And for a while, he played along. He smiled more, came home on time, even took me out for dinner once, but it was a lie. A few weeks later, I found out the truth. Erin had been cheating on me. Not once, not casually, but for over a year, with his coworker, a woman named Tara. The same woman who'd recommended Noah to us. It felt like the wind had been knocked out of me. All this time, I'd been blaming myself for the distance between us, trying to fix what I thought was a broken marriage, and he'd been unfaithful, lying to my face, making me feel guilty for finding comfort in someone else's kindness. I confronted him. Of course he didn't deny it. He barely even tried to justify it. He said we'd grown apart, that he didn't think I loved him anymore, that he fell into it. I wanted to scream, but instead, I stood there in silence, feeling every ounce of betrayal like a knife to the chest. He asked if I'd been seeing Noah. I told him the truth. No affair, no physical intimacy. Just conversations, just understanding. And he laughed, said I was pathetic, that emotional cheating was still cheating, that I had no right to judge him. Maybe he was right, maybe we both failed each other, but in that moment, I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to be the victim in his story, not anymore. Something shifted in me that night. I'd spent years living in silence, in shadows, shrinking myself to fit a version of marriage that never gave back, but now, I was awake, and I was angry. Erin thought he'd broken me. He thought I'd cry, beg, maybe even try to win him back, but he underestimated me, because I wasn't going to fight for a man who had already chosen someone else. No. I was going to show him exactly what he'd lost, and I was going to make him regret every single lie. Let me start by saying this. I never planned to become the kind of man I ended up being. I used to think of myself as dependable, stable, a provider. The type of guy who worked hard, paid bills on time, and showed up when it mattered. But I also thought I was smarter than I actually was. I thought I could live 2 lives and keep them both standing. Her name was Tara. She worked in HR at my company. At first, it was harmless. Work chats, team lunches. The occasional after hours drink when we stayed late to finish reports. She was funny, easy to talk to, and completely unlike my wife. Not better. Just different. She made me feel younger, wanted. In control. It wasn't like I was looking to cheat. I told myself that more times than I care to admit. I told myself my marriage was already dying, that we'd been more like roommates for years, that maybe what I was doing wasn't really that bad. Lies. All of them. I don't know the exact day it crossed the line. I just know it did. And once it did, everything changed, suddenly. I was making excuses to stay late. I was checking my phone more than usual, keeping it locked with a password I hadn't used before. I avoided questions. I stopped trying at home. I knew Olivia felt it. I saw the way her eyes searched mine, looking for answers I wasn't ready to give, but I just kept pretending everything was fine. I could have stopped it a dozen times, but I didn't. I was too far in, and the truth is, I liked the escape. I liked how easy it was to forget about bills, routines, responsibilities. With Tara, I could be someone else, not the husband who didn't communicate well, or the father who forgot to show up for piano recitals, just a man who was wanted. And then one day, Tara mentioned a guy she knew who ran a landscaping business, said he was talented and looking for more work. We'd been meaning to fix up the backyard for years, so I asked for his number. That's how Noah entered our lives. At first, I didn't think much of him. He was quiet, polite, hardworking. Olivia seemed to like his ideas, and he got along well with our daughter. It was nice to finally have the yard taken care of, and I figured it'd help Olivia stay busy, give her something new to focus on. I didn't realize how much they were actually talking until a few weeks in. I started noticing little things. Her phone would light up when he was around, and she'd glance at it quickly before putting it away. Once, I overheard them laughing through the window while I was on a call inside. Nothing sounded inappropriate, But it still made me uneasy. I didn't say anything at first. I had no right to, really. I was the one who had broken our vows, not her, but still. Something about it rubbed me wrong. The moment that confirmed it for me was subtle. She was in the kitchen, scrolling through pictures of the new deck. I leaned over her shoulder, and she flinched. Not in fear, just instinctively, like she was hiding something. That's when I checked her phone one night while she was asleep. I didn't find anything explicit, no sex, no declarations of love, just messages, conversations that ran deeper than they should have. They talked about music, books, childhood memories, things I hadn't heard her share in years. There was one message she wrote that stuck with me. She said, "I feel like I can breathe when I talk to you." That hit me harder than any affair ever could. I didn't confront her right away. I watched her instead, watched how she smiled more when she got a message, watched how she seemed lighter, like a burden had been lifted, and I hated it, not because she was happy, but because I wasn't the reason why. I started being more careful after that. I cleaned up my act, came home earlier, paid attention to her in ways I hadn't in years. I even took her out for dinner, hoping to remind her that we still had something worth saving. But it was too late. She'd already turned the page. Even if she hadn't cheated physically, she'd crossed over emotionally. And honestly, I couldn't blame her. When she found out about Tara, I thought she'd fall apart. I expected the crying, the yelling, the threats, but Olivia didn't scream. She didn't even raise her voice. She just looked at me like she didn't recognize me. That was worse than any rage she could have thrown at me. It was disappointment, the kind that cuts deeper than anger ever could. She asked me if I loved Tara. I didn't know what to say. Did I? Maybe, but not in the way I once loved Olivia. What I had with Tara was built on lies and escape. What I had with Olivia, what we used to have, was built on something real. I just let it rot. I moved into the guest room that night. She didn't ask me to. I just knew something had shifted permanently. And even though she didn't tell me to leave the house, I knew the walls had closed in. I was no longer welcome in her heart. The days that followed were quiet, cold. We still shared the same roof. Still took care of our daughter together. But the warmth was gone. We became polite strangers, efficient, detached. I tried to act like I was still in control, but inside, I felt like I was unraveling. Tara kept calling. I stopped answering. It wasn't that I didn't want to talk to her. It was that I couldn't anymore. What once felt like an escape now felt like a trap. I had traded years of marriage for a fleeting distraction. And the cost, I lost the one person who knew me better than anyone else. But what I didn't expect was what came next. At first, it was little things. Olivia started getting dressed up again, not for me, but for herself. She'd go out in the evenings, come back smiling. She stopped asking me about my day, stopped cooking for both of us, and only made enough for her and our daughter. She was cutting me out, piece by piece. Then came the job promotion, hers, not mine. She landed a remote leadership role at a startup. The same woman I'd once thought was too comfortable to chase ambition had stepped into a new version of herself. And I wasn't part of it. She started changing the house, too, repainting rooms, replacing furniture, making the space hers. I started to feel like a guest in my own home, the final straw. She filed for separation. Not divorce, not yet, just enough to create distance on paper. To signal that she was no longer playing house with a man she couldn't trust. I was furious. I told myself she was being vindictive, that she was punishing me for my mistakes. But deep down, I knew the truth. I had started this fire. She had simply chosen not to burn with me, and the worst part, she didn't cry, she didn't beg, she didn't even seem sad. She was calm, focused. Like she had already mourned the marriage, buried it, and moved on. I, on the other hand, was stuck in limbo, living in the ruins of a life I'd ruined with my own hands. I tried to talk to her one night, told her I regretted everything, that I wanted to fix it. She looked at me and said, "It's not about what you regret, Erin, it's about what I deserve. And I don't deserve to live in a constant apology." She was right. She always had been. And as much as I wanted to blame Noah, I couldn't. He wasn't the reason we fell apart. I'd broken us long before he ever showed up. He just reminded her that she deserved more. But here's the thing. I wasn't going down without a fight. She thought she'd ended the story. She thought she'd reclaimed her power and left me behind. But what Olivia didn't know was that I wasn't the same man anymore. And if she thought I was going to disappear quietly, she was mistaken, because if I couldn't have the life we built together, neither could she. I didn't recognize myself anymore, not in the mirror, not in my thoughts, not in the cold way I started to think about what came next. I wasn't angry because she moved on. I was angry because I realized she'd grown while I shrank. Olivia wasn't just rebuilding. She was thriving, and I was stuck in the shadow of my own consequences. But I wasn't finished yet. She filed for separation. She didn't ask for the house, but I could see the strategy behind her decisions. She was moving money, shifting responsibilities, hiring a lawyer, quietly but effectively. I knew that kind of planning. It was the same focus she once brought to our family, now aimed squarely at closing the chapter with me in it. I thought about going after Noah, thought about confronting him, maybe threatening him, maybe worse, but I didn't. Not because I didn't want to, but because I knew that would make me the villain in her story forever, and if there was even a slim chance of redemption, it wouldn't come from throwing punches or making threats. So I played a longer game. I cleaned up, got back in shape, took a break from everything and started therapy. At first, it was just to say I did, but then it started to help. I didn't change overnight, but I got honest with myself first. I realized I wasn't just a man who cheated. I was a man who failed to show up for the people who mattered. And I couldn't undo the past, but I could stop running from it. I made it clear to Olivia that I wasn't going to fight dirty in the separation. No custody battle, no financial manipulation. I signed papers when she needed, showed up for our daughter. When she asked, never made scenes. She noticed. I could tell it confused her. This wasn't the revenge she expected. She expected a desperate man, a bitter one. But what I gave her was something else entirely, indifference. Or at least that's how it looked, and it got under her skin. One night after a school recital, she pulled me aside in the parking lot. She asked why I was being so civil. I just said, because I finally respect what you've been through. That was the truth, but what I didn't say was that this was my move. I wasn't going to win her back with apologies or gifts. But maybe, just maybe, I could remind her of the man I used to be before I wrecked everything. Still, I had one more card to play. Tara had been quiet since the separation. We'd stopped talking completely, but I had texts, messages, proof of when it started and how deep it went. The very same proof that, if revealed, would contradict everything Olivia assumed. That I only cheated because the marriage had already fallen apart. I thought about using it. Thought about planting seeds of doubt in Olivia's mind about her own role in the downfall. But I didn't. I deleted everything. And that was my real revenge, because it wasn't about getting even anymore. It was about walking away with my head up. She thought I'd break. She thought I'd self-destruct. And I almost did. But instead, I rose, not to win her back, not to punish her, but to prove that the man I'd become wasn't the one who would define me forever. That was the twist she never saw coming. Months passed. She finalized everything. The house went up for sale. We sat across from each other at the closing, both calm, both distant, both aware of what we'd lost. When she got up to leave, she looked at me. Really looked at me. For the first time in a long time, not with anger, not with pain, just with a quiet sort of understanding. I hope you find peace, she said. I smiled. I already did, and just like that, we walked away. No explosions. No screaming matches. Just silence. That was my revenge. Not hurting her, not chasing her, just letting her see that she didn't destroy me, and that in the end, I became the man I should have been all along. Not for her, for me.